Hello there.
Lightsabers have been a staple of the Jedi and Sith since the dawn of Star Wars. The Jedi use their weapons to protect those who cannot protect themselves, while the Sith use them to inflict terror and fear across the galaxy. The color of the blade comes from the crystal that powers the lightsaber, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we will be talking about each and every lightsaber variant in Star Wars in both canon and legends. Starting out with the most common of all of them, the standard single-bladed lightsaber. This was most common among the Jedi. Well, not as common among the Sith Order, it was still widely used. The saber produces a single beam of light produced by the crystal powering it. Interestingly, though, the sabers can only be used at a single length that is determined at the construction of the lightsaber. At our second variant on this list, we have the regular double-sided lightsaber. This specific variant was most indoctrinated by the Sith Order. Due to it having two blades, it required two crystals to power it. Also, due to it having two kyber crystals, the double-sided lightsaber could have two different colors in it, though that was extremely difficult to have, because the color of the kyber depends on the traits and personality of its wielders. The reason this variant was more common among darkside users was because they were more authentic and the style required two crystals instead of one, forcing the users to adapt greed, making them more attuned to the dark side. At number 3 is the flicker phase lightsaber. This was an incredibly rare variant of a lightsaber due to its blade flickering from time to time, causing it to extinguish the blade at random points. This made wielding it extremely difficult, even for the most skilled Jedi, but if it was somehow mastered, it was one of the most deadliest forms of lightsaber combat in the Jedi Order. In the Jedi Order, turning off your lightsaber in the middle of combat to gain an advantage was considered extremely dishonorable. Because of this, wielding one was extremely frowned upon. In our fourth spot, we have the lava crystal lightsaber. This was created by inserting a lava crystal into a regular lightsaber. These crystals were incredibly rare, only being found on Mustafar, and nearly no Jedi ever used them. When ignited, the blade would generate immense heat, not to mention it would spew out huge chunks of flame, fire, and lava, occasionally hitting its own users. Because of this, they were rarely used, and when used, highly feared. This next lightsaber was a very unique one. It is the sickle-bladed lightsaber. This variant of lightsaber was used in the ancient times, only being used by the Sith. It was curved at its end. Over the thousands of years, no Jedi historian has ever figured out how the blade was able to do that, but it was believed to be incredibly effective when attacking the head of an enemy due to its unique shape. Coming in at our sixth spot, we have the hinged double-blade lightsaber. This variant was based off of the regular double-sided lightsaber of the Sith, but featured a hinge at the middle, meaning both blades could be activated at the same time, allowing it to trap the blade of an enemy. Some common wielders of it are Darkseid Rey and Pon Krell. Following the theme of double-sided lightsabers is the spitting dual-blade lightsabers. This variant was most commonly used among the Inquisitors. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was only used by the Inquisitors. It allowed the user to spin the lightsaber at incredible speeds. It could also be used as a single blade and could even be split into two. It also can be turned into a helicopter, as shown in the show Star Wars Rebels. Coming out at number 8, we have the, Versificating Crystallical Ignition Pulse Saber. I completely butchered that name. This variant allowed a wielder to ignite the saber underwater. This variant was rediscovered by Jedi Master Kit Fisto before the Clone Wars, who came from a water planet himself. This basically made the saber operate on two ignition sources, alternating and preventing it from shorting out underwater. At our 9th spot, we had the fancy curved hilt. This variant was used by Count Dooku and his Padawan Asajj Ventress. The reason Count Dooku used this variant is because he wanted to change the trajectory of his blade and make it so he could make more precise strikes. Most opponents were often caught off guard by the precise strikes, making them incredibly vulnerable. And on top of that, the curved hilts could be connected to create an uneven double-sided lightsaber, making them extremely dangerous. Unfortunately, we only have seen two wielders of a curved hilt. At our 10th spot, there's the broad saber. This variant was highly frowned upon by the Jedi Order, as it was deemed too barbaric and weak, due to it having a broader and flatter blade, making it similar to the darksaber. Many masters believed it was not as elegant as a regular blade, but acknowledged it was great for Form 1. This next variant Not much is known about it other than it consists of a lightsaber being hidden inside of a walking cane. Two wielders of it are Darth Maul and Sazy-Tin. At number 12, we have the Light Club, or otherwise known as the Great Blade. Unfortunately, almost nothing is known about this specific variant, but we do know they were incredibly oversized and heavy. Due to that, most of its users were Jedi or Sith of much larger statures, and they are often far longer than 2 meters in length, allowing its users to keep a safe distance in almost every battle. Coming in at number 13, we have the Light Foil. The Light Foil was a very interesting saber, because it was primarily used by one-handed wielders, basically like a fencing sword. This weapon was developed and created by ancient Sith lords, and produced a much weaker and smaller blade. Its hilt was so small that using it with 2 hands was impossible. You can only use it with 1 hand. The lightsaber is most commonly used by non-Force users who found it easier to wield, as it not being as heavy or as demanding as a regular blade. At number 14 is the laser rifle. Instead of using a lightsaber as a weapon itself, the gun used the lightsaber as a literal ammunition. Due to that though, it only had a few shots, because after that the weapon would overheat and melt. We've only got to see this one time, and that was by Jocasta Nu when she was going back to the Coruscant Temple. The Guard Shoto, or the lightsaber Tonfa, is the next on our list. Not to be confused with the regular lightsaber Shoto, the lightsaber Tonfa was a unique weapon that had a perpendicular grip and a second blade protruding from a 90 degrees angle. Because of this, spinning in a circle made it extremely effective when blocking blaster bolts and other sabers. But because of its complexity, it made it extremely dangerous to use. Unfortunately, we've never seen this in canon. Next up on the list is the lightsaber pike. This weapon was used by the Jedi Temple guards, and it was similar to the hinged double blade, but had a shroud to protect its emitter. Other than that, they were usually yellow and often handed down from guard to guard. Because of that, all Temple Guard lightsabers were incredibly ancient. At number 17 is the Crossguard lightsaber. These sabers were basically the same as regular sabers, except for them having to vent out to allow extra excess energy through the sides. They're primarily created to not allow opponents to slide down their lightsabers during a lightsaber duel, but they also turned into a fashion piece during the Jedi Golden Era, the High Republic. But when using a cracked kyber crystal, using a crossguard was practically a must, because of the extra energy had to be released somehow, or the blade would explode. That is why Kylo Ren had a crossguard lightsaber in the sequels. Next up, at number 18, is the Light Whip. The Light Whip had a very similar hilt to the regular lightsabers, but the blades produced were extremely flexible and closely resembled a real whip. Instead of using a single crystal, the Light Whip required multiple crystals to power the blade, and they could also make a whip from the other side, making it incredibly hard to avoid and impossible to avoid by non-Force users. At number 19 is the Far Killer. The Far Killer is extremely similar to the light rifle, but had a much longer range, up to 100 kilometers. Unfortunately, other than that, we know little about it other than one person used it in Legends. Coming up at number 20 is a dual phase saber. This lightsaber variant is literally the same as a regular saber variant, but allowed its wielder to change the length of a blade. The wielders that we do know used it is Kanan Jarrus when teaching Ezra Bridger and Sabine Wren. The next one is the darksaber. The darksaber is the symbol of Mandalore and was created by the first ever Mandalorian accepted into the Jedi Order. This was monumental because the Jedi Order has been at war with the Mandalorians for centuries, but was able to put aside their differences in the case of Tar Vizsla. As a member of the Order, he crafted the darksaber in honor of his culture, but also for his newfound family in the Jedi Order. After his death, it was stored away in the Jedi archives, but would later be stolen by the Mandalorians during the sacking of Coruscant. From then on, the person who wielded the darksaber was considered the ruler of Mandalore. The only way it could be passed on was through victory in combat. The current wielder of the darksaber is Bo-Katan Kryze. At number 22, we have the Shoto saber, or the light dagger. The Shoto saber was basically the same as a regular lightsaber, except for the hilt being smaller and the blade being shorter. It was mostly used by Jedi who wanted to dual-wield lightsabers, but did not want to have two lightsabers at the same length. It was also used by Jedi of smaller stature who could not wield a regular blade, such as Yoda. Coming up at number 23, there is the lightsaber blaster. This was a lightsaber created by Ezra Bridger who combined the traditional lightsaber with the blaster. He did this because he was not yet confident in his lightsaber skills and wanted to have a backup option that he could fall to in the heat of a battle. Number 24 is the Tag Proto-blade. The Tag Proto-blade was a unique variant created by Silas Dominic Tag. It was very similar to a lightsaber, and when powered up, could cut through walls and enemies. It took the form of a gauntlet with a yellow blade and emanated energized plasma. But despite this, it was not powered by a kyber crystal, but rather created by non-force users. At our final spot, we have Exar Kun's lightsaber. Not much is known about his lightsaber in canon, unfortunately, but it was believed to be a proto-double-bladed lightsaber that inspired the double-bladed lightsaber that Darth Maul used and other users used. These are all current lightsaber types in Star Wars Legends and Canon. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and if you have any video idea or questions, leave them in the comments below. I would gladly check them out and answer them to the best of my abilities. Make sure to like and subscribe, and may the Force be with you.